There is no two other words that carry more regret with them than what if? What if I would have traveled the world? What if the place that I'm born in is not the place I'm meant to live? What if I would have had stories for the rest of my life to tell? And what if I could be sitting in Bali with my laptop on the beach, sipping on a coconut and living the best nomad life? Well, the truth is, working by the beach is terrible. It's super sunny, sand everywhere, hot. And this is one of the few realizations you come to when you go into this. Right now, a lot of people talk about it, nomad life. And coming from somebody who since 2017 has been living around the world, I visited, a good bit over 80 countries. And today I want to share with you some of the biggest mistakes I have made, I see people doing, going in with the wrong expectations, and also how, in my opinion, if you have the right approach to it, it can be one of the best things you can do in your life. Because the reality is, if you have the curiosity inside of you, you want to see a bit more, you're asking yourself like, hey, this one place I've been to or that I want to go to, how could life be there if I would stay longer? Could I maybe see myself living in a different countries or living around the world? Because that's how I call it, remote living. Real quick about myself, I was born in Eastern Europe, immigrated through Poland to Germany, lived there my teenage age, always financially struggling a good bit, and then getting the chance to study in the US, spending some time there, coming back and really being like, hey, there's such different worlds out there and I want to see more of it. And when in 2017, I just packed a little bag, booked some random flights, left for good, really, without a return ticket. I didn't know that I would get on this journey that, first of all, would become much more popular in the sense that this is a generational shift. It's something that is very new. It is a huge opportunity, especially if you happen to be able to work remotely or if you're working on your own thing. Maybe you started your business, you want to start your business, you're in the beginnings of it. Because back then, when I left, I tried doing all kinds of different things online and I was making a little bit of money, not nearly enough to sustain myself. The first couple of dollars on the internet, and I was like, I'm gonna make it work. It was a beautiful, young, naive day, but it came out to be true. After a couple of months, after maybe half a year, I was able to sustain myself. And I remember standing in Thailand on some random rooftop, looking into the distance, this lime cave scenery looking back at me. And I was thinking to myself, hey, it's possible. You're living it. And the first couple of years I spent living fairly humbly. That has been the story of, in the last couple of years, truly living the life I wanted to live, jumping all across the world. Sometimes we do 10 countries a year, sometimes 20, sometimes 4. I want to share with you some of my favorite spots as well for this kind of life around the world. But even more so, really the biggest mistakes that I made myself and that I see people really making when they go into this. And at the end, I'm going to share with you my own personal philosophy. If you happen to want to live this life, how I approach it, what my goals are moving forward. And let's get into the negative side of it. One of really the deal breaker mistakes that can happen to you is getting sick or injured while on the road. I have to be honest with you, I've seen it a couple of times where people really messed with not just their trip, but really a little bit with their whole plans for the next couple of years. Because if something a bit more serious happens to you, maybe you get sick in some way, maybe you get injured. And this is where today's video sponsor, Safety Wing, comes in. Look, I know it can be a bit annoying, all these integrations all the time in videos, but I feel like this product is truly an essential. And in many ways, it's a game changer and something that didn't exist really a couple of years ago. So with Safety Wing, you have Nomad Essential and Nomad Complete. So the Essential is a travel medical insurance. Like if you're going for a couple of weeks somewhere, it's really flexible, you can get it, and to make sure that in emergency situations, you are covered. But Nomad Complete is a truly game-changing product that is tailored to people who want to live around the world, stay protected, and have a full medical insurance, one where you can go to doctors with, one that you can go for checkups for. And it's even for serious things like cancer screenings and treatment, even mental health support. You want to go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, wellness treatments, things like protection on the road, delayed luggage, or even burglaries. You might go to some edgy places, you might not always feel safe, but you want to have the peace of mind that if something happens, you have a full medical insurance. Maybe you get sick in some way, maybe you get injured, or be it you want to do some regular checkups to make sure you stay healthy, which is essential. And this lifestyle can, especially in the beginnings, can be very draining. So with Nomad Complete, You have an insurance that is maybe similar if you're living somewhere like in Central Europe. You can basically choose any doctor you want. You are covered even in your home country. If you have any questions or concerns, they have a 24/7 hotline you can get to for any claims. Same thing, they're always available. And this is a company and a service that exactly is tailored to this remote living, nomad living life. And this is, I feel like, what really sets them apart. So I'll make sure to leave a link first thing down in the description. Even if you're just planning right now to go on a trip, with the link, you can set up a free account. So if you're hitting the road, everything you're familiar with, you can check the reviews on their website. And you see, the way I really see it is that if you go for a couple of weeks, okay, like the safety wing, essential, the emergency travel medical insurance is fine. We'll cover, let's say, the emergency situations. But if you're moving around long term, multiple months or maybe even years, that's where it's truly not enough. And that's where, until recently, there has been very few products out there that can cover you globally. And this is truly, when it comes to this lifestyle, a solution where you can move around pretty much almost all over the world, even your home country, and you're going to be covered. First link in the description, or I will leave a QR code somewhere here that you can scan if you're watching on TV. And with that being out of the way, let's talk about, let's say, one of the biggest downsides and mistakes I see people making. Especially the first couple of months, especially after a year, you see a lot of people being like, hey, this is not for me. And I think that's also a great, let's say, takeaway from that. But look, what I mean is, you think about the idea, hey, I'm gonna be in nice environments. Maybe a lot of people go to Southeast Asia these days. I'm gonna be by the beach, I'm gonna have nature, I'm gonna have sunsets. And with that, I'm just gonna take my laptop, I'm gonna go to the cafe, I'm gonna set up there, like I'm gonna have cheap, nice food. And the reality is that with every new environment that you change, there's a lot of positive. You might feel more inspired, there's more curiosity, you feel more alive. But with that, there's also a lot of stress. And it's very easy to get burned out in the sense of, look, if you live like in one place, then you wake up in one place, you go to however you work. Now you come to a new place, every single night you need to figure out where you're gonna stay. So optimally you book something maybe for a week or two or a month, depending how long you stay. Then you need to figure out like maybe a gym, maybe like some cafes, maybe some social stuff. And that, with every new destination, that can be very exhausting. Booking flights, researching them, the price rate goes up. You're having a mental breakdown. All of that is part of the game and is part of the journey. But it's something that I feel like is very often underestimated under the context of like how much opportunity cost is there? Like how much time are you going to spend on figuring out where you're going to eat next and where you're going to lay your head down? And that is just a factor that I feel like if you do it often enough, like for me, I find that I have developed really a skill to adapt quickly. Like I have basically 3 rules. Every time I arrive in a new place, rule number 1, find a decent gym. If I'm there for a month, let's get a nice gym membership to have a routine going. If I'm there for a week, I'm usually going to more local gyms because they do more day passes and things like that. And I actually enjoy that little bit gritty environment in different countries. Sometimes it gets me to some funny neighborhoods. But yeah, rule number 2, find at least 1 or 2 cafes where you can just hop in, get some food, maybe get some work done. And most optimally, if possible, stay at just like, I don't know, be it a hotel or Airbnb with a table if it's short term. If it's long term, make sure in advance that you have something, especially like, that can give you a certain routine and then lock in quickly. And once you have that base, now it's time to explore. Now it's much easier to get excited. And after a couple of years, I find that every place I arrive to, especially if I'm there for a couple of weeks, it does take some energy, but not nearly as much as it used to. And I see a lot of people really struggling with that stuff where it's like, it's pretty much impossible to build a routine. And especially if you're trying to go somewhere in life, especially if you're trying to build something for yourself, be it you're working for somebody remotely, be it you're having a side hustle, you're having your own business. And then like, I'm spending my time stressing over visas and flights and things like that. And it is a true factor. And it's something that you need to adapt. And with that, if you approach it, in my opinion, kind of like as a bit of a challenge and as of like, how can I build certain systems to minimize the effort? Natural conclusion is that if you come back to places that you already know, you kind of develop little mini bases, I would call them, places that you keep coming back to, then things get a lot easier. Another factor is they wanted to live around the world. They wanted to be a digital nomad. Now they go to certain spots, and without kind of like spending a bit of time there, getting to know the area, getting to know the different places, they just, first of all, spend a lot of time in the tourist areas. Second of all, go to a lot of the businesses, be it restaurants, be it anything that are catered towards short-term tourists, where the prices are much higher and very often the quality is a good bit lower. And then first of all, the experience you're gonna make like, hey, this kind of sucks. It's not like that great of a lifestyle. You might end up in an area that is not the nicest, where like infrastructure might be not that good. And again, a lot of the digital nomad destinations, I would say, are places that offer more for your money. I will talk to you about that in a second when we talk about the benefits of this lifestyle. But with that also in terms of financial kind of like, but just being smart about it, a lot of people are still like, hey, let me get like a really nice place to stay. And let me like go to all the places I've seen on Instagram. And then I see a lot of people burning through a certain budget that they had with all the exhausting factors we talked about before. They don't have as much time and energy to actually work on whatever they're working on to bring the money in. And then you end up in a position where your professional life is suffering and you're not fully happy with like what you're getting here, because at some point, you have seen a lot of beaches, you have seen a lot of sunsets. And while I feel like if the life design, like I call it, is dialed in, you're like, hey, this is amazing. But if that's not the case, you're like, at some point you get tired of it and you don't see the pros and cons kind of like weighing up in a sense. And what obviously happened to people too is that, the thing is with this lifestyle, it's easy to lose a little bit sight and purpose of why you started the whole thing in the first place. You maybe get a bit comfortable in one of the locations you stay. Like I see it a lot to people happening, once again, in the very go-to locations like Thailand and Bali. Cost of living is lower, you're comfortable, you're going to all the sunset, maybe you're spending a bit more than you wanted to. The whole equation starts to not really make sense and you start to lose yourself a little bit in the sauce. Maybe again, you just end up kind of like recreating the life you had before, where you feel a bit stuck, just now in a more tropical setting. Another factor is the social one, obviously. I hear from a lot of people, and me as well, like I personally love doing a solo trip here and there. Most of these years, I've either traveled with, special somebody or some friends, and maybe like 20-30% solo in terms of the travel. A lot of the time, I actually personally spend in environments that I keep coming back to. So I would say, if you want to rock it all solo and you have like a list of 10 countries you want to be in, hey, I want to go to Bali, I want to go to Thailand, I want to go to Colombia, I want to go to China, I want to go to the US, and I'm just going to live there each couple of weeks, a month, 2 months. And then you're going to be like, yo, so I'm here now. I don't speak Spanish. What the hell am I going to do? And the reality is that I think it is really a challenge. For me, the only really solution was, first of all, my circle is fairly tight. There's a couple of people and friends I talk to all the time, but it's very few. If you're traveling with a special somebody, that has its own challenging, it can be really relationship testing, I can tell you that. But at the same time, that is a way how I see many people do it. But for me also, it kind of brought me personally closer a lot to family. Like I really started to communicate and also try to visit family a lot more, pass through a lot more, maybe take them out on some trips. I feel like this experience really gave me the perspective of which kind of relationships are truly meant to last in some ways. And at the same time, it gives you a lot of opportunity to create many new relationships. Some people might say, oh, they're kind of a bit surface level. Well, in my opinion, it kind of depends how you approach them. 3 mini bases that I keep passing through for years, pretty much all the time. It's Bali, Thailand, and Dubai, in that order. Whenever I arrive there, there's usually somebody that either lives there long term, maybe out of town right now, often there, or over time, you meet some people, you get to know some people, some that maybe live a similar lifestyle. And very often, if I'm in a place for a while, usually a good amount of people are passing through that I know. Especially when you get a bit out of the box and you try to live life a bit more and truly push for something that you want, how you see your life in the future. You also start to realize who were your true friends, who are still around, who still maybe pass through and you kind of connect in life. Alrighty, so now that we got off kind of like the biggest mistakes I see people making. Look, man, or lady. Look, let's talk about the pretty huge benefits of this life. Number one, an instant life upgrade. I feel like the reason this life, in many ways I would call it, is it's really a generational opportunity. It came up because a lot of people living maybe in North America, in Central Europe, in economies where the average wage is just higher, and you happen the chance to have your own business, maybe you're working remotely, where you notice that you can have such a better life quality at other areas of the world and more. But let's talk about that. Why are so many people going to Bali, to Thailand, to Vietnam, to South America, Colombia, Mexico, Eastern Europe, Georgia, Caucasus, all of these locations? Is because in many of them, in some more, in others less, you can get a really good life. Like let's say you're spending rent on your apartment, $700, $800, $1,000, $2,000 in wherever it is you're living. For that kind of money, you're gonna be living very good. Like what gets you for, let's say, 100 euro, 800 euro, for example, in France. Like you're gonna be living in a villa, basically, in Thailand. You're going to be living in a very nice apartment in Bangkok. You're going to be living in a very nice, once again, place in Bali, in Eastern Europe. You're going to get a such more nicer apartment for that kind of money. And then eating out, especially because of in many parts of the world, like you eat out, it costs you your grandma's inheritance, basically, like $100 to have some basic dinner, And then somewhere else, it can be $20, $30, and the quality can be even better depending where you are. Like, for example, for meats, I don't go to Asia that much. They have amazing places, but they're gonna run also the price because it's imported. Then if I'm like in the Caucasus or something, or in Eastern Europe, my diet also shifts a little bit depending on the locations. But really, you can have a huge instant life upgrade if you're spending right now $1,000 on your life. It's gonna get 4 times better as if you were spending $5,000. If you're spending already 2, 3, 4 a month in living expenses, you're gonna be living as if you have been spending 10 or maybe even 20 G's in a place like UK or Germany or US, And I'm sure that is nothing new to you, but honestly, to me, it feels a bit almost, I don't want to call it shallow in the sense of like, oh, I want to live a nice life in Bali with a coconut and just sit there because it's cheap. I feel like the whole factor of upgrading your life should serve a purpose. And personally, I find this is like I called it, a generational opportunity in the sense of, with that, you get the opportunity to already live a life that excites you a lot more. You get to not just, let's say, take the same expenses with you and just upgrade your life. Maybe you can lower them a bit, and you can optimize your life to focus on your goals, to focus, let's say, maybe you're building a business, to build a routine and structure where your day-to-day life, if it's sunny, if there's maybe a beach, or if you're in a big city and you feel already like you can live a pretty nice life, maybe on the weekends or, when you finish your days of work, and meet new people. Again, the social factor. If you're moving around through different places, some locations, you can just meet people that are doing super interesting things all over the world. You can connect with them, keep in touch, and especially if you're living that life and they're living a similar life, you will be happening to kind of passing through, meeting each other. And maybe you're orienting yourself, maybe you're figuring out what you want to do. Maybe it is the fact that you have a little bit of savings in the back and you want to figure something out. Don't forget about this purpose and don't get lost in the sauce, so to say, of just like, hey, let's travel. And that can be cool too, and that can be fun. And the way I personally do it, I do it in bursts. So like I mentioned before, there's certain places I keep coming back to and always adding maybe 1 or 2 new ones to the list. So for example, in the last couple of years, last year, I spent a lot of time in Central Asia, the Caucasus, areas I've never been to before. I was in Georgia, in Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. And out of all of those, I found Georgia to be, for example, a quite nice place to spend a bit more time. Cost of living is pretty good. I love the food. I love the environment. And I do love tropical places. That's why I keep coming back to Thailand. I keep coming back to Bali. And those are the places I come back to reset, to recharge, to get into a really nice routine, to lock in. And between that, I travel. And for example, in the last year, I think I visited around 17 countries. And I did probably like 12 or something of that within a time frame of 4 months. So some places I passed through for 5 days. Other places I stayed maybe a week or two, and then I come back, for example, to Thailand for 2 months and just recharge. And every time I come back to Thailand, usually when I leave, I'm a bit not tired of it, but I'm like, okay, it's okay to have something new now. It's cool, and I'm excited for the next place, especially if it's like traveling. But when I'm gone and I get a bit tired from traveling, moving around, I'm so excited to come back to Bali, to Thailand, even like spend some more time in Dubai to network a bit. And I feel like this is kind of like step 2 or 3 in what I would call is a 4-step master plan, let's call it, of remote living and designing a life that really has a lot to offer. And talking about the benefits of it, really seeing so much of the world is in many ways a school of life. There's only so much you can understand about the world from watching the news, reading some textbooks, maybe going on a vacation somewhere. Like I can tell you, the example you get of a destination if you pass through it as a tourist is very different than if you spend there at least a month, because you need to see also a little bit the downsides. You need to get into some neighborhood that might not be the best, or find the ones that you find that you like the best. Because very often, like from a tourist perspective, you might have a good impression or a bad impression, and that is usually based on a couple of factors. And especially even more so, learn a little bit about how the people live there. And there's some things you can pick up within a couple of months. I would say to truly get to know a place and to get an idea of what is going on there, you do need a good 6 months. And to start to feel comfortable there also truly. But just hearing some people's stories, maybe you read up a little bit on the history, just from a couple of weeks you can get a bit of an idea and get a bit closer to some parts of the world where, especially if you're then again, you're somewhere else, you meet somebody from that part of the world, it gives you so much like base to connect on, to form friendships on. Like it's super cool. Like I love all the time meeting somebody there, like, hey, I'm from this small country you probably never heard of. I'm like, yeah, I've been there 2 years ago, it's fun, you know? And then all the crazy stories and adventures you might live, and actually also super stressful situations you might get yourself into. Like most of the time I like to go to places that I kind of scout as like destinations for remote living, to spend more time. This is my main curiosity. And also especially like countries that are developing a lot fast. Like recently I've been to China, and I liked it much more than I thought. I thought it was very interesting how really high tech most of the cities are. Check out the videos. But sometimes I go for adventure, I go to some countries maybe I should have gone to, having some passport stamps that caused me some trouble, getting stopped by some local militias, getting questioned for hours and hours, you know. Everything was always good at the end, I can tell you, but I can also tell you that there has been some crazy stories that really mentally you have to tighten up a little bit, and then some smaller problems, you know, that you have day to day or stressful situations become pretty small when you have been questioned and interrogated for 5 hours in some random country you maybe shouldn't have gone to, but it was a great trip and a great story. And from that factor also comes really one of the biggest gifts that I also want to finish off today's video on. I feel like time is very relative. In the sense of sometimes a year feels like a month, it just passes by, it's gone. You're like, hey, I feel a bit stuck, where's my life going? And then sometimes a couple of months can feel like a year or maybe even years, where you feel like you have done so much, you have grown so much, you have met so many, like you make so many experiences. And what I feel like living remotely or going on this adventure of maybe for a couple of months, maybe a couple of years, or maybe even long-term living around the world, it gives you this warped time perception of time in mostly a good way. Sometimes it's a bit confusing where I'm like, was that like a year ago or 5 years ago? Like a brain is a bit off in that sense, but sometimes you feel like a place that you have spent 2, 3, 5 months at, maybe you've returned or you've been there twice, it feels like a life you have lived. Some new people entered your life, some significant things, positive or negative, have happened that feel like a whole proper chapter where you look back at your life and you feel like, hey, I've truly lived a lot. And I feel like that is always one of my biggest fears, is kind of like life passing me by and feeling like I haven't done what I could have done. I haven't lived as much as I wanted to live. And like I still feel this, and it still drives me in some ways kind of like a positive fear, in the sense that I wake up and I want to push a bit more and I want to do a bit more, but at the same time it gives me a lot of peace to just look back at the last couple of years and to be like, a lot of life had happened there. And I just feel like, just from a kind of like perspective of how our brain works, how we perceive the world, it's always a lot more colorful and a lot more vivid when it's something new, something we haven't seen, something we haven't smelled, we haven't heard, and it just makes us much more present. It zones us in. And there, I feel like with this lifestyle, you really have to hit a certain balance of seeing too much and getting burned out. And at the same time, it's kind of like when you sit at home, you're like, oh, I want to go out and see the world, and I want to travel so much and do so much, and I want to live around the world. And then if you're maybe doing it, you're like, oh, I'm so exhausted. I just want to lock myself in a room and never leave. And I feel like it's about hitting the healthy balance, because what I do see some people after like maybe doing it for a couple of months, they feel like this is not for me. A lot of places they go to without the right insights and research, they don't have the type of experience. For example, when I was in Bali and in Thailand for the first time, I talk about these two a lot because that's where I spent a lot of time in the last couple of, especially 4 years. First times I didn't like it because I went to like the run-of-the-mill kind of like neighborhoods that often are a bit run down, that are super over touristy, and for some people it might be fun for like a quick trip. But only after a while, after really a couple of weeks or months, you start to be able to design your life and truly pick certain locations that you like. And I feel like this is my long-term philosophy, is that I feel like we with a certain psychology that we're just instilled in, we don't operate very well doing really mundane and like mechanical tasks every day. Just do the same thing every day, bomb, every day, bomb. Life passes you by and it just feels like this is not how life meant to be lived. There are certain natural curiosities that come up, certain rabbit holes you want to go down and explore. And I feel like from that perspective, that is why we crave going somewhere. That's why we go on vacation. And while for some people I feel like the vacation concept works, they have one place they live, they go on a couple of vacations a year, that's it, and the rest of the time you're locked in one place, and that's fine. For me, that was always not an option. For me, what really works, and what, if you actually look at it, in some ways, kind of like, rich people used to do that for a very long time. You always hear like, oh, there's their house in France for summer, or things like that. This is where they spend their winters. And while for most of us, this kind of, money to have a mansion somewhere in France would be cool, would be nice. But realistically, that's why I call this a generational opportunity, is because for the first time with a very modest and, let's say, if it's just slightly above average income, and if you're still building on it, you can get to live a life that was reserved really only for the rich. And with that, why do people like to do that? Why do they like to change their environment every once in a while? I feel like it's for most people really refreshing, especially if you have a little bit more of a creative tendency. You like novelty, you like new experiences. And for me, it's like, I don't want too much. I don't want too much new stuff. Sometimes I just get a bit burned out, like mostly emotionally, kind of like, I just want to like do stuff, have a nice routine, and I try to build my life around that personally. But truly having the ability to kind of like change your backdrop a little bit. My life back in the day used to be, hey, I'm going to a nice place and then I have to leave it and I'm sad because I'm going back to the old mundane daily life. And I actively transformed that over the last couple of years. It's been actually really a while now, since 2017, into, hey, I'm going to a place often I've been to before to spend some time there. I'm super excited and pumped, and I come back and I remember all the nice things I have liked. And then when I'm leaving, I'm like, okay, now I'm excited for the next thing. If you are in a position where you have the luxury of really contemplating on going and live that life for a bit, probably the reality is that if nothing works out after a couple of months, a year or two, you can go back to your old life and not that much is going to change. But what could happen if some things, or even more than you could imagine, would work out? So this is, why you got a world to see. So I hope you got a bit of inspiration, a bit of insights, just sharing some of my personal experiences and some of, hopefully, a bit content that inspires you in a way to do more, to see more, and to also keep in mind though that with everything there's pros and cons. And for me, moving forward over the next maybe 5 to 10 years, starting actually even this year, I'm actively looking at maybe some real estate in some countries to really formally have a base there, and most optimally have that in 2 countries after a couple of years, so I can actively bounce around, maybe leave my things between them two, maybe looking at things where it would make sense to maybe buy something and then rent it out. But For me, it's really about finding a couple of places I can call home and then travel in between of the time. So I personally see myself probably for a very long time, most of the time. And then, when factors like family might come in, maybe fairly soon, maybe a couple of years, maybe 5 years, we'll see. But with that, also like many places start to have international schools. And the world is changing a lot, like crazy. And I feel like this is an opportunity that is becoming very popular, and I feel like in a couple of years it might get much harder. This is maybe another mistake that people make, overstaying the tourist visa. A lot of countries starting to issue some digital nomad visas, some call it like that even, remote working visas. I've had some like business visas before, some remote working visas. That can be an opportunity, an option if you want to stay longer in a country. What you don't want to do is get banned from a country because you keep overstaying their tourist visa. It's just not very sustainable. In the beginning, if you just get started, you just want to check out some locations, I think it's perfectly fine. Lock it in. So if you're new here by any chance, I document my daily life around different destinations under pretty much these thoughts and topics and considerations of building a life of freedom around the world, living remotely, more freedom, more opportunity, more adventure. And I feel like this is what this lifestyle can really offer if you are the kind of person that is like naturally curious, you want to see more of the world. Maybe it's going to be a chapter for you where you do it for a couple of months, couple of years, and then you decide you want to stay in one place and just go on the regular vacations like you did before. Or maybe you want to pursue something similar like to me, because I feel like it's becoming more and more realistic for many more people. Like if you set out the goal, hey, this is where I want to see my life in 10 years, and then you work towards it, it's very possible in today's world that we live in. And yeah, all I can say is just start, keep going. That's what I'll be doing. And to keep in touch, you can join me on my Instagram. There I mostly like post kind of like as, interesting and exciting, inspirational locations around the world. And with that, once again, a shout out to today's video sponsor, Safety Wing. If you are planning your nomad lifestyle, an absolute essential, like I said, a service that is tailored for people wanting to live this kind of life. First link in the description, a true full health and medical insurance that covers you all over the world, visits to doctors, preventative care, different checkups, psychological support, wellness treatments, travel aspects that are insured. First link, or I'll also link it once again somewhere over here. And also I'll be definitely interested to hear a little bit from you. Are you personally just like to travel? Are you living this kind of life right now? Have you been doing it for a long time? Have you maybe stopped? What were the reasons? Would be super pumped to hear what your thoughts and experiences have been, or maybe if you're just playing with the idea to do it, maybe this video, I would say it gave you a measured, let's say, reason to pull the trigger. Definitely do it. Like if it goes wrong, then go back to what you've been doing before if you don't like it. But I feel like for a lot of people, once you truly get to experience this kind of life with all the benefits that it has to offer, I would say the sign is, if you have the curiosity and the desire to do it, most likely if you do it right, with patience, with proactive life design, you might find yourself that it's going to be hard to go back to a more regular way of living. And so that's what gotaworldtosee is all about. Thank you very much for watching. The usual whatever, thumbs up. I don't remember the last time I mentioned that. Leave me a comment down below. Subscribe if you haven't yet. I think it has been a couple of years since I said that, but just today on my phone popped up like do a call to action. But I would say the call to action is to live more, to see more, freedom, opportunity, adventure. You got a world to see.
Mm-hmm.